Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Abigail Robertson. In America today, engaging in tough conversations with people who have differing political views isn't always easy. But the authors of the book, I Think You're Wrong, But I'm Listening, say we should be doing just that.
Jenna Browder recently sat down with Beth Silvers and Sarah Stewart Holland to talk about why it's important to tackle those hard topics and how to make sure those tough conversations are full of grace.
The tagline of your book is a guide to grace-filled political conversations. Those seem to be lacking in today's culture. Beth, what does a grace-filled conversation, political conversation, look like today?
We talked a lot about whether we wanted to use the word grace because it's a word that we use among ourselves all the time at Pantsuit Politics. And a lot of people said, why don't you just talk about civility? And we realized we're talking about something deeper than civility. This is not just let's be nice and kind in these conversations. Sometimes grace requires a really firm stance. What we wanted to convey with grace-filled political conversations are conversations that connect you to your values, so that we make sure no matter what we're talking about, how contentious it gets, we are fundamentally operating out of a sense of our most treasured values.
So it's not about backing off your values, but having an understanding of the other person's values?
Well, you know, sometimes the conversation is going to have to happen before you can understand the person's values. But what we really want to push people to do is represent their values not just in their policy positions, but how they engage about those policy positions, how you treat the other person, how you talk about the other person. Those reflect your values as well.
What are some very practical tips you could give people?
The first thing we want people to remember is that the goal is not to emerge from the Thanksgiving table with draft legislation. We come together and connect over politics because they do offer us spaces to explore how we live in community with each other, and that's relevant to our families. So we want people to have these conversations, but we just want them to understand the goal isn't to convince anyone. You don't need to walk away all agreeing on who you're going to vote for. It should be a curious exploration, especially when you've grown up in the same house with someone who sees things so differently than you. It's great to say, I wonder how this happened. You know, we have so much in common in our background. Why do you think we see this so differently?
So do you agree or disagree with this statement? Let's agree to disagree and move on.
I hate that statement. I hate that sound because it feels like it's shutting down the conversation. Beth was saying this just the other day. The reason I think we both have such strong reactions is because it sounds like we're done here. We're not going to talk about this. And that's the opposite of what we want. What we want people to do is say, okay, I think maybe it's become too heated right now, but I care about what you think. And I want to continue this conversation later. I want to continue to talk about the issues in our countries that matter, the values that are important to us, and maybe even become better versed in why we disagree, or maybe even find some agreement.
Why do you think the concept of grace is such a hard concept in today's culture? There seems to be so little of it.
Every message that we get is you're a consumer of what's in front of you. Especially through social media, we're trained to give things a thumbs up or a thumbs down immediately. And grace asks us to hold a lot of room around everything. Even if I disagree, you're still a person I value and respect in my life. Even if I think this policy position is wrong, I want to hear it out and see what I can learn from it. Grace has that element of we belong. And nothing else around us enforces that sense that things belong, even if we don't love them.
So what about the really sticky issues that we are talking about today? You know, whether it's gun violence or abortion or really polarizing issues. How do people navigate those conversations?
Sometimes it's best to approach the conversation like a reporter, like somebody who's just curious to learn, to think, where did you get that information from? Is there anything I could say that would help you see this issue differently? Or sometimes what I like to do is go really, really far out. How does this play historically? Is this different than how somebody 100 years ago would have talked about it? Just giving some bigger, wider perspective to the issues and not see it as just a debate where we have to convince one another.
To learn more from Sarah and Beth about grace-filled political conversations, you can check out their book and podcast on pantsuitpoliticsshow.com.
Well, for most people, adulthood starts when young people move out of their parents' home and learn to manage life on their own. The millennial generation, however, seems to have a harder time jumping that hurdle, with many lacking the life skills, typically expected of an adult. But as reporter Caitlin Burke shows us, now there are classes to help them learn how.
Yay! Grandma gives you $150. Congratulations! Where do you spend it? Or do you?
Welcome to Adulting School. It's judgment-free, practical, and proving to be invaluable to a generation eager to learn.
You can go to your sink, and a lot of people have a plunger hanging around. Okay, do you know that you could plunge a sink? So I did not.
Some of the classes are lighthearted. The how-tos include unclogging a sink, folding fitted sheets, patching a wall. Others focus on more essential skills.
We are going to go through and talk about just a basic way to structure how you spend your money, where you put it.
Launching into adulthood can be tricky, and millennials, maybe more than any generation before them, have been especially vocal about feeling ill-equipped to hold the title of adult.
Rebecca, at what point did you feel like an adult?
I haven't yet.
I think I started to feel like an adult when I got my first apartment, but I'm not even 30 yet, and I'm still of the opinion that, like, being an adult has too many negative things, so I just want to stay a kid forever.
The term adulting started out as a joke, millennials using it to describe their efforts to engage in adult behavior. Then, in 2016, the growth in online use led Merriam-Webster to add adulting to its words we're watching list.
Adulting. To do grown-up things, such as paying taxes, wearing pants all the time, buying your own toilet paper. You want to nap all the time, but your boss won't let you.
The millennial generation comes by their bumpy transition into adulthood honestly, having never learned many of the skills that would allow them to proceed with confidence.
It became clear that we wanted our kids, our parents wanted their kids to have a college education, so they started activity after sport, after extracurricular, and so they're not sitting down together to have a dinner. They're going, okay, grab a sandwich, we gotta get to soccer. Okay, I gotta get your sister over to lacrosse, and then you gotta go to math club, and and then it's like, we're not lifting the hood of the car.
There's a lot of emphasis placed in schools on getting us to graduate, getting good academic achievements, and not so much on the life skills that we need once we leave the educational system, when we're off on our own, and how can we really be independent or interdependent in the world.
I don't think it is that obvious what they really need to do. There is so much information right now that has never been available before. It's social media, it's Instagram, it's Snapchat. There is always something coming at people right now. And so that's that sense of overwhelm that you get. So when you see that hashtag adulting, it's people struggling or it's celebrating. So it's not clear to them.
Rachel Flahinger and co-founder Rachel Weinstein started Adulting School simply because of the need.
It flushes out all of the noise. And it's like, here's the information. And also here we care about you doing it. We're not just, oh, you're a millennial, you don't know. You're so spoiled. Well, nobody taught you. So here we are.
Originally, Flahinger and Weinstein brought in instructors and hosted pop-up workshops here in Portland. But now the demand is so great that they've gone digital. Adulting School now offers classes online so that students across the country can participate.
The goal for Adulting School is really to help people, is to fill in that gap that is what was missed, so that people can really feel like they have a base under them to be successful. These are our future adults. These are our future politicians. These are our future. And so we want them to feel and be successful.
A necessary gift to a generation navigating a rapidly changing world. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Portland, Maine.
Coming up, how to eat and beat some of the most common diseases. That story when we come back.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Welcome back. Medical research reveals effective ways to fight back against cancer, heart disease, and depression. And the answer might be right in your pantry.
That's right. As medical reporter Lori Johnson explains, the key to self-healing is feeding our bodies the right foods.
When it comes to life's big decisions, what to eat ranks pretty low on our to-do list.
How do you decide what to eat?
By whatever I have in my cabinet at the time.
I eat whatever my wife makes for me.
Do you snack?
Definitely, sometimes. Well, most of the time I snack.
According to Dr. William Lee, new science proves that's definitely the wrong approach.
There's no superfood or super diet, but it's really about how our body responds to what we put into it.
Research tells us we have within our bodies amazing natural defense systems designed to protect us against our scariest diseases. Here's the catch. They require nourishment from healthy foods, like olive oil.
Because while medicines can be used to treat disease, foods can prevent the disease in the first place.
In his book, Eat to Beat Disease, Dr. Lee lists 200 foods that fuel our natural defense systems, such as the microbiome, the mixture of good and bad bacteria in our gut. Fermented foods and fiber enrich the microbiome, and surprisingly, even sourdough and pumpernickel breads.
Turns out that sourdough is made with Lactobacillus reuteri. In fact, it's that bacteria that creates that nice tangy taste. That bacteria boosts our immune system. Pumpernickel bread, which is made from rye flour, R-Y-E. Rye flour will actually decrease the levels of an unhealthy bacteria in our gut that creates a toxin that causes inflammation.
We all know DNA contains our genetic code, but it's much more than that. Our DNA also tells our body what to do. Unfortunately, it's a fragile system, constantly under attack from things like UV rays, secondhand smoke, and gasoline fumes. Certain foods, like tomatoes, help our DNA stand strong under attack.
Almost 36,000 men have been studied, and it was found that those who ate 2 to 3 servings of cooked tomatoes, that's tomato sauce, per week had a 30% decreased risk of developing prostate cancer.
Thanks to our own stem cells, bodies can renew themselves.
So when we were kids, we were taught that salamander and starfish regenerate, but people can't. Science is turning that upside down. We know that we do regenerate from the inside out using our stem cells.
Turns out chocolate can be a super fuel for these cells.
And I write about, in my book, a study looking at men who have coronary disease. And when they were given dark cocoa, the chocolate alone was able to double the number of stem cells in their bloodstream. And when they measured the reaction of their blood flow, they were able to double that as well. So it's quite remarkable.
That flow travels through some 60,000 miles of vessels, delivering oxygen and nutrients to our cells. That highway is a system called angiogenesis. While it feeds vital organs, it can also feed cancer cells. We balance angiogenesis through a healthy diet.
You don't want too much, you don't want too little, you want to have just right. Think about Goldilocks.
Vitamin K2 is key to controlling angiogenesis, which you can get through Gouda, Jarlsberg, and Edam cheeses.
This vitamin K2, which is a healthy side effect of making the cheese itself, is a powerful anti-angiogenic, cancer-starving substance.
Some foods feed all of our natural defense systems, like kiwi fruit and green and black tea.
And it turns out there's natural chemicals that are called catechins that are in these teas that can do everything from cut off the blood supply to cancers, to boosting our immune system, to even act as a prebiotic to help feed our healthy gut bacteria.
So by understanding which foods support our body's natural defense systems, we are better equipped to live strong, vibrant lives well into old age. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, how the head of Facebook's faith-based partnership outreach is using social media to win people to Christ.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook are some of the most influential forces in the world today.
That's right. Charlene Aaron introduces us to one woman taking advantage of them, building the kingdom of God through social media.
Ordained into the ministry at only 17, Nona Jones has expanded her coast as a highly sought-after author, mentor, and conference speaker.
God is a great guy.
Now this minister and pastor's wife reaches an even greater audience in the digital world as head of Facebook's faith-based partnership outreach.
I've preached around the country and around the world, and what's interesting is I wasn't asked to join the company in spite of that. I was asked to join the company because of that. I work with pastors and churches and denominations literally all over the world to help them maximize their use of Facebook to connect their congregations. The way that I like to think about it in a ministry context is digital discipleship.
Jones told CBN News how divine intervention led her to quit a job she loved and open this new door.
I was at the chief executive level of a statewide network of alternative schools in Florida. But 4 years into the role, God said, this assignment is over. So I met with my boss that day, met with her at 1. I finished talking with her at 1:40, got in my car, was driving home. At 2:05, my cell phone rang. 1:40 to 2:05.
1:40 to 2:05.
25 minutes, my cell phone rang. And I didn't recognize the number, so I wasn't going to answer it. But the Holy Spirit said, answer that. And so I was like, hello? And the lady was like, is this Nona Jones? And I said, yeah. And she said, I'm calling from Facebook.
By all accounts, Nona Jones is living a life of purpose. But the journey to that purpose has been filled with rejection and the pain of abuse.
I grew up in a very traumatic situation. So my father actually wanted to have children, but for 15 years, him and my mom were married and she never got pregnant. And then she finally got pregnant and she actually cried because she didn't want to have children.
After her father died of cancer in 1984, her mother dated many different men. One of them ended up sexually abusing her.
When I was about 5, she met a guy who became her live-in boyfriend. And unfortunately, shortly after that, he started to abuse me sexually.
Jones says it affected her life in many ways.
And I would go to school and act out because, frankly, there was a lot of chaos at home, and I didn't know how to process it.
At age 11, her life changed forever when a friend invited her to church.
It was there that I discovered Jesus. I began to learn about the calling that God had on my life.
The abuse continued, however, and Jones eventually told her mother.
The very first time I told her what he did, she had him arrested, and I was so excited. I was like, well, thank you, Lord, he's gone.
That relief wouldn't last.
Around the time of his release, my mom said, hey, what do you think about him coming back? And I was like, I don't want him to come back. And she told me that, she was the adult. We needed money in the house, and so she was going to bring him back. And so she literally took me with her. I will never forget being in the backseat of the car, heading to the jail to pick him up. And when he got in the car, it's like he had this smug look on his face. And so it continued after he got out of jail.
Growing in her newfound faith, Jones prayed for a way out. The answer came after earning a full scholarship to the University of Florida. As a microbiology major, she studied hard and was one of the top students on campus. Yet the brokenness and bitterness of her past haunted her.
I was successful in college, but I had a lot of rejection inside of me that I still needed God to work out.
Healing finally came with forgiveness.
When I forgave my mom, truly forgave her and realized that, number one, hurt people hurt people. She had been abused, he had been abused. When I realized that, I think I was able to finally walk in the freeing power of forgiveness.
Today, Jones's mission at Facebook and beyond is to tell others about the God who rescued her and has given her a platform to share her story of freedom and hope.
It doesn't matter how many followers you have. What matters is how many people are following Jesus through you.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, all the branches of the military have their own national museum, except for one. How that's about to change next.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The Army is the one military branch that's never had its own national museum.
That's right, but not for long. Our Gabe LaMonica has this preview of what to expect.
When it opens, the steel fortress behind me is going to be the Army's first national museum. It's been a long time coming, but the Army took us inside for a sneak peek. The big reveal of the U.S. Army emblem on the lobby floor comes some 2 years after installing the final steel beam, and some 200 years after the 13th U.S. Congress authorized a national museum for the Army.
We are the last service to have its own national museum.
It took a lot of heavy lifting to move in everything from this Cobra King battle tank, the first in Bastogne 38-ton legend that broke the German lines during World War II's Battle of the Bulge, to this M3 Bradley fighting vehicle that led the charge in the 2003 invasion of Baghdad. All before suspending this Vietnam-era UH-1 Huey from the ceiling and bringing in hundreds of artifacts in between. Now, the oldest branch of the U.S. military is rolling along and into a 185,000 square foot glass and steel citadel above 84 acres some 20 miles south of the nation's capital.
It represents a beacon, again, the strength of the Army, the safety of the Army, and that's how we protect our citizens as well.
Tammy Call is the museum director.
We tell the Army's story, the comprehensive story, through the eyes and voices of our individual soldiers.
One of those voices belonging to the late Melvin Nestaby, who survived the Bataan Death March during World War II.
I will always be a soldier.
Hundreds of American soldiers died when the Japanese Army beat and tortured prisoners of war during a forced march of more than 60 miles.
A well of water springing up into everlasting life.
Nestaby's New Testament Pocket Bible is just one of over 7.4 million copies issued to American GIs during World War II.
Lack of water or starving, this helped them through that time.
And this good book carried Nestaby past the perils of murder and disease over the course of 4 POW camps in 3.5 years.
He carried that with him throughout the duration of the war.
Paul Mirando is the chief of exhibits.
He gave his life, his service to the United States Army, and his story, along with this Bible, needs to be told.
The museum will cover the history of the Army from the Revolutionary War to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Army says that after over 240 years, this testament to its service and its soldiers is long overdue. Gabe LaMonica, CBN News, Fort Belvoir, Virginia.
Looks like a great museum. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great night.